Live from the Unmuted Newsroom, this is Black Headlines by BLKALERTS.
Well,
Good evening.
night. Good night.
Okay, well, same thing.
All
Trying
of
not to
all of
say
that.
until the end of the
All
show.
of it.
Right.
Well,
I'm Tiffanie
I like
Lanelle.
good morning, good day, and good night.
Better than Grand Rising.
I hate that. Grand Rising, Queen. All right, let's be serious. Welcome to Black Headlines. I'm Alex Haynes, and
I'm Tiffanie Lanelle.
you said that, and I appreciate you for saying that.
Doing my best.
Welcome to Black Headlines, and it's important. We'll talk about a couple of things today. Most importantly, that this is essential. We can talk about why, and we will, but there's some things that are happening in the country that we happen to be in presently, and there's certain things that are happening. And things are happening so rapidly. It's really important that they are broken down in ways that are digestible. And we've gone back and forth on the best way to do this. How did we end up back here?
Back here doing this show or back here in the state of this nation?
Great question. Both.
Well, back here doing this show is we were working on releasing some headlines today, and then everything became a headline. And we said, you know what? Our mic should have been hot a long time ago. It's time.
And that's the piece of it that I don't know that I'm gonna get used to, right? And I think it's by design. We are in what some would call some sort of a matrix. This is not a simulation. One. And the thing is, those are coping mechanisms. Thinking that this is the matrix is a coping mechanism. Thinking that this is a simulation is a coping mechanism. To think that we're glitching, it's all really happening. Everything is really happening. And there's so many reasons why it's hard for people to believe that. It's hard for people to believe that it's not going to be okay.
It's not.
And for so long, people that, and we can look at history and see that people that have been alarmist have not traditionally been believed. That part of that, it's like, well, this person was sounding the alarm. No one believed them. No one thought there was any validity to that. And based on that, people didn't listen to them. And those people probably went about their business, said, listen, I've tried, I've done what I can do, and I'm gonna get out your way. And I'm gonna let what is actually happening happen to you. And I think part of the reason that we can't get past these points, and forgive me if I'm too frank tonight, is that we're fed way too much bullshit. Then we take that bullshit.
It's too frank tonight.
We take that bullshit, put it on a plate. Sometimes we get out the good china, sit down, digest it. I mean, eat it, inhale it. And when I say inhale, you know, those people that don't breathe when they're eating. There's two types of people that don't care that they're eating bullshit. People that just inhale and they don't think about it. And those people that will eat anything fresh out the grease. Like, you know, that's too damn hot. Like, those people, aside from the mental illness, those people are going to be fed the bullshit and not care because it's burning. It's literally burning them. Because it burns everybody else. That's how we know it burns. And they're like, nope, I'm going for it. And I think that I think that to minimize this in any way, minimize these moments in any way, is dangerous. It's detrimental, and we are so close to the end, because of unhinged decisions that are being made. we're going to talk about those decisions tonight. I can give you speculation, I can give you opinion, I can give you conjecture. I'm not going to do that intentionally.
Because the facts are actually the facts. And the end could be one way or another. Like, it could be the end of this planet. It could be the end of democracy. It could be the end of healthcare. Pick an end.
And the end of democracy. And I know that we've got a tight agenda, and we're going to follow that agenda. But when
Right.
you say end of democracy, what do you actually mean by that?
This country is supposed to be a democratic republic. We are
And
supposed
when
to
you
have
say that,
systems.
what do you mean by that?
We are supposed to have systems that we as the people elect, and then the people that we elect, some of those positions are then appointed. We are supposed to have liberty, the freedom to pursue liberty and justice for all. We have a constitution republic, like, that we are supposed to have. We're supposed to have constitutional law. We're supposed to have elected officials who follow the rule of law.
Mhm.
We are losing that bit by
Mm,
bit, and it's
mm.
very intentional, and that is what I mean by the end of democracy.
And I appreciate you breaking that down. I had a conversation today with someone that said they really didn't feel like, they thought that the idea that we had all of that was just nonsense, because we got somebody that's the head. I don't know the difference between a president and a king. And I'm like, is this a willful unknowing? And I got to, you have to really now ask these questions. I feel dumb as hell because I never had to ask adults adult questions, like, or I don't, because I don't think that's an adult question. I think you should know something about your country. I think if you don't, while I wonder why, I can't help but think that it's by design, because now I'm interested in where you are, where you're from. I want to know more. I want to know if your mom knows anything about the country. Like, and
Hold
these
on,
are,
did
you're
you mean that
laughing,
the
but these are
person you were
really,
talking to did not know the difference between a king and a president? Is that what you're saying?
I'm telling you, they didn't believe that there was a difference.
Between a king and a president? Okay, let me
They,
back up
they,
without judgment, because I just explained what a democratic republic is and that the fact that we are in one. So
mhm.
let me briefly talk about, very briefly, talk
Well,
about the founding of this nation, and how the founding of this nation, the Declaration of Independence, is declaring independence from the king that we were under, that the people who stole this land were under. And they wrote the Declaration of Independence in 1776 to declare us independent from that king, from the monarchy.
mhm.
And we started having presidents, George Washington being our first one, in a democratic republic. Okay.
Well, most importantly, George
Brief history
Washington did
lesson.
not want there to be a king,
Period.
and
When you
and
read the
he- then
Declaration of
and he was
Independence, it talks about them getting away from a tyrant. That was the king. Now, you could read the Declaration of Independence today, and it could probably fall in line with what we are dealing with in the White House today. And I'm saying that as someone who taught a workshop last year at a freedom school and read the Declaration of Independence to them. And they were like, "So who wrote that today?" And I said, "That is the Declaration of Independence." But that's another show and another topic. Y'all can sign up for my class later.
It really is. What I'll say to that is that people, one of the main problems that we have in this country, and I've been saying this at length for upwards of a decade, is that it's just too damn big. It's too damn big. And a country this size, which you must understand that most countries in the world are the size of our states or smaller.
Right.
So to think that all of these people think the same thing or believe the same thing or understand the same thing is also disillusionment. We are all literally fed disillusionment so that we
And
believe these
propaganda.
dreams that are, big word. So I'm just trying to keep it on the level for people that think a king and a president are the same thing. But you're right.
Propaganda is a big word.
It's got
I'm
multiple
being
syllables.
so
So yes,
serious.
it
I'm
is.
being That was
Propaganda. That could be 4 words to somebody.
okay. All right. All right.
On that note, we've done the subtleties. That's in those all of that was important. It's important that you understand the baseline of where we are. Like if you don't know the basic of the basic, and I know that for our community specifically, you know, we've had Know Your Rights campaigns more so because that constitution applies to you, and most of us don't believe that it does. That's also by design. And
Absolutely.
the freedoms that are within it, the rights that are within it, they all apply to you. And it's important that you know this, especially as they are under attack, because the fact that you haven't been able to exercise them because you didn't know is a reason that they can attack them without being contested.
Yes.
So I say that, I mean, this is to me, this is a very hard to show. This is a hard show to do. There's some hard things in this tonight, and the most frustrating thing about it is that tomorrow it's going to be just as hard.
Oh my God.
And I mean, it's just crazy to understand that this is where we are, but this is where we are. So with that, if you are tuning in, that tidbit intrigued you, you're a little disillusioned by what is happening right now, and maybe you're one of those people like, what the fuck was happening? What is happening? Like every single day, and people are just kowtowing to this bullshit or appeasing this bullshit, or and we're so, because of the conditioning, Tiff, and I can't get off of this. We're disillusioned, and then because of what we see, we believe that everyone is in the same place or everyone is experiencing it the same way.
And
Also
that's
by
just not the
design, but
case
also just not the case.
at
So,
all. If we were all experiencing things the same way, I don't think that we would have the president that we have right now. And by we, I mean this country. Because
talk
if we
about
were all
that.
experiencing the things the same way, then people
Talk
would have
about that.
known that we would lose farmers and we would lose workers and that we would lose important people, essential workers in this country. People would know that right
I
now Congress is meeting and voting on over 200 amendments to this big, beautiful bill that will strip Medicaid. If we were experiencing this country in the same way, less Black people would die at the hands of police because more people would have compassion and understanding. We would be doing more in the streets to ensure that that's not happening. If people were experiencing this country in the same way, then we would not have to talk about tonight how 2 men were lynched and they're being deemed suicide, and that's not the first 2 within the last 5 years. So no, I do not think that people are experiencing this country in the same way.
oh, I don't I didn't even, I would not insinuate that because I
Oh,
know
I
that
know
they're
you
not.
weren't.
But I
Many
know that
do.
people are disillusioned to believe that. And so you
Hmm.
do believe that if you and again, this works because of how education works and the education that we get in this country. So the first thing that I'm going to do, but when we start tonight, is break something that has you bound. Everything you learned came through a filter. Everything you know came through a filter. Depending on where you were, how that information got to where you were, and who gave you that information, that is going to tell you what type of filter was there. We have also intentionally disrupted the flow of information and education because of fear. Fear is the number one tool that is used to control people in the world, but specifically in this country. This government instills fear. Your religion instills fear. Your community instills fear. And so some of you have known nothing but fear in this country, while another half of this country has known bliss. They've known that they could
Ugh.
take anything, whenever, however, and wherever. And they move into these places, they create laws that allow them to do that. You may have ended up in one of those places. You may live in one of those places and not know. And that's how screwed up the system is right now. It's
Right.
literally built for uh, for this to happen. And I
Yeah.
think what's happened to us as a society, we live in these information silos. People are getting their information, and you don't have to go far to say, and you can't say I'm not one of those people, because you have certain apps that you get your information from, certain people that send you information that you trust, and other people, when they send you information, you're like, that's some bullshit. That's just where we are today. There's certain news sources, I don't want to hear from that. I don't want to click on that. I don't want to see what their perspective is. Now we're polarized that way, be also by design, because people started to fuck with you based on the things that annoy you, the things that irritate you, or the things that mostly you don't understand. And when you don't understand, you start to speculate, or you make things up, or you cling to what you may have heard. So you may not know, but it's the same trope over and over and over in this country, and people get played by it constantly. And now we're dealing with it. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know.
You mentioned something, and I wanna insert a term that I love to use. There is a saying called tabula rasa. None of us come to anything tabula rasa. We all come without a blank slate. We have the way that we were raised. There's nature and nurture. There's lived experiences. There's different education systems. You get a completely different education in the Midwest than you're going to get in the South, than you're going to get on the East Coast, than you're going to get on the West Coast, than you're going to get in a private school, than you're going to get in a public school. We all have that filter. And as you get older, that filter can change and
You're right.
should change, but some of it is changing in a way that it just should not. So we've got a lot to cover tonight. If you have been watching the news and you are like, I don't know what the hell any of this means, Supreme Court released 5 decisions out of the 6 expected ones on Friday. They released a few more today. We haven't had time to read those. We'll do those tomorrow.
I honestly feel that people that don't know, you are in a better place until you clicked onto this, and now you will know. So welcome.
And for that, we both apologize, and you're welcome. But you're
no apologies, because I really think that if you don't know, then the people that around you won't know. Like, they won't know. Like, and again, I'm gonna use you as an example, because you continue to attend churches and hear things, and hear people talking about how we should just we are the peacemakers, and we are here to service the world. And you're still being fed bullshit while people are literally plotting to kill you. And if you were in a church this weekend and you didn't hear that your government is plotting to kill you by taking resources away, healthcare, access to food, access to clean water, access to clean air, access to healthcare, access to streets that are drivable, access to homes that are livable, access to a society that fucking works. They're literally plotting to take. It's happening right. It's happening. We are talking to you, and this is happening right now. They're making the decisions. Literally. People are trying to convince them. There's a one party in this country that's been standing up for 18 hours just to read the 900+ page bill.
1,000. It's over 1,000 pages now.
Just came out with. They had to read that on the floor to get them to actually read what and hear out loud what they're doing to people,
which is crazy to me. But nobody read it, and some of them admitted. Some of the Republicans, we're not at that part in the show yet. That's coming up. So if you want to know why Congress
they didn't read it because Senate, they weren't going to read it. That it was never about reading it. It's really everything's about performance.
If you want to know why Congress is in session right now voting on amendments, we will talk about that later in the show. We're going to talk about Supreme Court decisions that came out on Friday. We're going to talk about the One Big Beautiful Act, as it's called, that is being voted on with the different amendments in Congress as we speak. I've got it up on my screen. We are going to talk about a few things. LA mayor and city councils being sued by the Department of Justice. Meta wants your data. Of course they do. But we're going to tell you what that looks like and how your even unposted
I really
photos are
I
being used. And we're going to talk about how the southern states are creating a new agency. So it's a lot to cover. We're going to start with the Supreme Court, though. If you don't know, let me back up because you made a good point in the beginning of this show.
because I need you to talk to these people.
So let me back up.
Talk directly to these people.
You are right, and let me do that. We have been hearing, some of us have been hearing on the news, Article 2 this, Article 3 this, and you may not know what that means. When people are saying Article 1, Article 2, when Trump is saying, by the powers in Article 2, I can do this, and by the powers of, that is the Constitution. So when you're Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3, you're talking about the three different government. You're talking about the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branches of our government. They are all supposed to work together and have different controls over different things. Congress has what we call the power of the purse. So when Congress has the power of the purse, you'll see in a lot of Supreme Court decisions where they say, well, that's supposed to go to Congress. Congress is supposed to make the decision on that. Congress is supposed to. Now, our current Supreme Court is a bit conservative leaning, which is not what it's supposed to be, but it is. That's another show. Watch some of our previous shows to figure out why if you don't know why. But because of that, they tend to use these articles when it's convenient in certain decisions. Supreme Court is, of course, part of our judicial branch within the three branches of government. On Friday, their terms start in October. So we technically are still in the October 2024 term of the Supreme Court. Okay. Friday, they released 5 of 6 expected, decisions. We're not going to go through all 5. If you want to know about all 5, we have one article that gives a summary of each of them on BLKALERTS. And then each of the decisions that was released on Friday are linked to a separate breakdown for each case in that article. So if you want to know about all 5 of them, you can go to blackalerts.com and read all of those. We are going to highlight 3 in particular that will impact us, the people that we are talking to. Okay. The first one is Trump versus CASA, I think is how you say it, CASA. And this is the one that everybody was talking about. It's a threat to birthright citizenship. This case did not actually deal with the merits of birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment. It only dealt with the basis of what remedy the plaintiffs in this case get. That was intentional, okay? They left the arguments for the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed birthright citizenship. They left that for another trial to be discussed in another argument. This one, Trump versus CASA, is just about universal injunctions or nationwide injunctions, as they are also known. A nationwide or universal injunction is essentially something like when the Dobbs decision came down, which reversed Roe v. Wade, and they've been talking about Mike Pristone after that, right? A universal injunction is what was used to initially stop the Trump administration from banning Mike Pristone. They are trying to get rid of universal injunctions, is essentially what this case was about. So, with this case, essentially, the Supreme Court said universal injunctions are done. Now, both primary parties, Republicans and Democrats, have used universal injunctions a plethora of times. There's some number somewhere, we don't have to get into that, but essentially between the Bush and the Obama administration, a plethora of universal injunctions were given. Universal injunctions are handed down by federal circuit courts. So There's a circuit court that handles a few states within each circuit court, right? That federal circuit court that handles, let's say, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. I don't remember what our federal court, circuit court, what all the states are, but hypothetically speaking, if a federal circuit court with its panel of judges makes a decision, then and it's an injunction, a nationwide injunction, that decision lasts. It is a remedy. It's a decision for the entire country, for all of the United States. The Supreme Court just did away with that. Why does that matter for birthright citizenship? That matters for birthright citizenship because in this case, there was a universal injunction that was given to essentially prevent what Trump is trying to do of getting rid of birthright citizenship. He keeps touting that birthright citizenship was only supposed to be for the babies born to the enslaved persons, to slaves, as he says. And he's like,
And I want to pause right. I want to pause right there.
Yeah,
I want
go
to pause
ahead.
right there because people can understand that, and also, there's always stupid ambiguity.
I knew which. Go ahead. I know what you mean.
Whatever.
Yep.
What happens in these cases, and they're as soon as they pass something, there's other parts in the law that these people, like you again. I think what's important is that you have to understand these people are plotting against you.
Right.
And they're using the tools that you don't know anything about, that you thought you didn't need to know anything about, or that you maybe you didn't, because I say this often, and I'm gonna just be real with some of you, because there's no other way to slice and dice this. And you were right, Tiff. Like you said, there's different types of education that you get in different parts of the country, but there are some basics that were taught in this country for a long time. There were basics,
right?
And I know I have a Georgia education. You know what that sounds like coming out of my mouth? You know how embarrassing that is. And if you've never left Georgia, you're not embarrassed by it. You actually think everybody has a Georgia education. that's
awful.
I hate to say you're also why we're here, but that's neither here nor there. There's redemption. Maybe, and as we, I would love the fact that you were diving in and giving up what was happening. But I think that when people hear how this is all broken down, they start to get disillusioned again, because they're like, so are you telling me that a court just took power away from a court?
Yes.
Essentially, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And also this court that we call Supreme became Supreme. The Supreme Court technically is, and again, we have a lot of technicalities in the United States. And I think that because we never talk about the technicalities, which matter more often than the actual truth, because the talking point, let me not say the truth. The technicality in the truth that you get in America is a live or die. These are live or die situations. So you have a Supreme Court that's supposed to be unbiased, right? There's supposed to be no partisan feelings. They're supposed to interpret the law. In their interpretation of the law over the years, we've seen how that has shifted from one way to the other, more conservative for most of the existence of this country. And one of the primary fears of the conservative party in this country is that people that are not conservative sit on that court, and all of a sudden all hell is going to break loose in the country, because there will be no order, and there will be no values, and there will be no consistency, and people would not follow the law, because that's literally been their concern, their point of opposition. We have a packed court that leans one way today because of that fear, and a conservative senator in the current Congress multiple Congresses ago blocked a Supreme Court justice from a president that was leaving within the year, because he personally thought this president did not have the right. This is nowhere in the law. That's why I'm talking about technicalities. It's important that this man single-handedly made this decision. He came out of his turtle shell, made the decision, and went back in. And he made this blanket decision when he popped his head out of his shell again to push somebody through for a president that was basically has the same values or party affiliation as him. I don't know. This current president has no values at all. So I don't know if this was really a values thing. It was just more so party lines. And so we're in this situation right now that the most nonpartisan people, the most nonpartisan court, that the court that the final decisions go to right now has been hijacked by conservative. All I have is 4-letter words, so I'm
I was waiting. I couldn't wait to hear the
I
end
was
of that
trying to
sentence.
find a word and nothing would come.
I couldn't wait.
Every word, but these people and you should know these people, and I know. I say you should know these people because the people that they are deporting right now, people that have, and we'll get to this today, people that have become naturalized citizens in this country that were not born in this country, had to learn about this country, had to learn about the laws and the order and the structure of the government in this country. These are people that I would argue
many
to
Americans
you,
couldn't pass.
Thank you for making that point. I would argue that these people specifically, these people, one of the reasons that they are on the chopping block is because they do know the laws. They literally had to test to become citizens in this country. They had to go through a rigorous level of advancement, literally to even advance in this country. And now this president is going after them for civil offenses. That's a whole nother conversation. You should know what civil versus criminal is, how that applies. Maybe you don't. But I would argue that that's one of the reasons that they are under attack, because they do know how this is supposed to work. They know more than natural born Americans know. So imagine how we're talking about ending birthright citizenship, right? That's where you're. That's where you are. And I rudely interrupted you to make this point, to make that point, that's who they're coming from, for who they're coming for now. But when they end it, they're coming for you. They're coming for you and your natural time, and they'll probably make you take a citizenship test to remain here. Now, you are definitely wondering right now, if you're listening, you're like, this could never happen. This is America. It's already happening. It's already happening.
It also is history repeating itself. They put people in internment camps on this stolen land.
You're like, it could never happen. It could never happen to you, but because they don't want you to hear anything about Black history, you don't listen to Black people, so you don't believe Black history, and that's you. Some of you Black people with your Black asses, you don't know your own damn history, and you don't know that but as we were given equal rights in this country, we really could not vote legally by law in this country until 1965.
Fannie Lou Hamer was beat almost to a pulp 3 times trying to register to vote, which was at the time her legal right to do so.
You're saying it won't happen. They would give Black people things like, guess how many jelly beans is in this jar if you want to register.
Not actually vote, just to register.
And if they were able to guess. Once they registered, do you think there was another test for them when they got there to actually cast that ballot? Or that somebody set their front lawn on fire the night before the election so that they wouldn't go vote?
Or kill a family member?
These things have already happened. They've already happened. I'm sorry. I went across the river and through the woods to get to that point, but it was important that I had those dots needed to be dotted and those lines had to meet, because history is really not a respecter of a person, right? As it just will repeat itself if people don't know it and don't work.
But that's the intention. The intention is for people to not know it. They don't teach civics in school anymore. And there are some schools that have never taught civics. I've asked people of varying ages, did you take civics? Did you take a civics class? And they're like, what the hell is that?
Well, they've rolled civics into things like social studies. And so people
civics deserves its own class.
But civics is a dated term.
Is it?
Right, until you start working in it. But even
is that
like,
a dated term though?
It is. Like, we use the term civic engagement, but civics as a course probably is offered in many colleges, but civics, if you look at it, it's rolled into social studies. What is social studies? Like, if you break that down. Now, I'm telling you what it is on paper. I'm not telling you, because I'm not in these classrooms. I'm not telling you. I don't know what they're teaching. I don't know. I'm not in nobody's damn classroom. Now, and
so I'm glad that you stopped me, because you brought up a good point that yes, in the grand scheme of things, the decisions, pretty much all of them, I think, from Friday, was the Supreme Court saying to lower courts, you can't do that. So this Trump case that deals with the 14th Amendment, there were 3 federal circuit courts. Not that the lower courts, so Supreme Court, federal circuit courts, state Supreme Courts, local courts. Those are in general, the hierarchy of courts. The Supreme Court just told the federal circuit courts that cover the different regions in this country, you can no longer decide or hand down a universal injunction that takes effect for the entire country. That's a no-go. 3 federal courts through an injunction, a universal injunction at Trump's executive order, where he tried to deny birthright citizenship to naturalized parents, essentially, or to parents of
what they can do is
certain conditions.
Right, and these decisions will now only apply for the people in that case or in that region in which it applies, right? So the people that brought the case for the people that are essentially covered by that jurisdiction. Now, there are ways around that. Right now, the ACLU went and filed a class action lawsuit at the same moment that this decision came down. So their goal is, it's important that we're clear, because we are sounding an alarm, right? I don't like the term alarmist, but alarms need to be sounded. They really do, right? Part of the reason that I don't want to spiral, but we need these alarms. But part of the reason that it's important that we kind of look at how this is happening and why it's happening is because their goal, if they can't destroy it, if they can't completely get rid of it, then they will slow it down. They will slow it down. They will make it impossible for you to get something done in a timely fashion. And they also know how slow the courts are. I offer to you, if you don't even follow politics, you do know that Donald Trump was on trial and also under investigation for multiple things because of the purse that he carries, and that's a cheap ass purse that he carries. He was able to continue to slow down cases, legitimate cases that were brought against him by the United States government, slow them down to the point that where he could literally he slowed them down. Like, that one actually happened. he's a convicted felon. He's
I
convicted
meant the
in the
one
state
here in
of
Georgia.
New York. Yeah, well, I mean, he was able to slow them down. He slowed them all down, even the one here. It eventually happened because
Right.
New York has that motherfucker's number. They know him. They know that,
Right.
man. They know what's under that orange toupee. They understand. And they get that.
Well, that didn't happen here, but that's again a different show. Yeah, different show and a different topic.
They know they know him, and they are using him to their benefit. Right. So that's
Right.
that's he's from here. So this
Well,
they know 100% he's drained. He's been ripping people
I
off
don't
in New
want to
York
talk
City.
about that orange bitch.
He's 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 been ripping off people in New York City for decades. And yeah. So that's that. Birthright citizenship really is. You said that, and I wanted to land there because for the argument to be that you created an entire amendment just for the children of slaves, like that is such an aside from being an asinine argument, it's completely asinine and disingenuous. It's demeaning, and it's meant to be demeaning and hateful, and it's said that way. Like, for what purpose would that even be done? So
You
we're
know,
gonna
they like to interpret what the founding fathers meant when they wrote the Constitution. And according to Trump and his homies, they said that the 14th Amendment was only Section 1 in particular, which talks about birthright, guarantees birthright citizenship, is only for the
no,
children
but
of
it literally
slaves.
does. It literally has words. So I don't give a
I
damn what
know
they say.
that
I don't give a damn or fuck what. I don't give a damn. When I tell you, it has words.
it does.
And part of the reason that we're having this conversation is so that so that you wonderful viewers go and look up these words, because when they tell you what I don't know how to tell you anymore. They want to kill you. They either they want to kill you, they want to oppress you. And when I say oppress, I don't want you to get some crazy image in your head that that seems unrealistic to you, right? Because we spiral. No, when I say oppress, I mean they that means make you broke. So they want to pay you less. They want you to live with worsened conditions. They want to take away for things that protect you. Simple things. The United States has had fluoride in its water since the 70s. Not a bunch of fluoride, not more than more than you get. I'm not going to bring him up. I'm not even going to say his name. What I'm going to say is they've now come. They're now coming after fluoride. There's already a state that's taking fluoride out of their water. Now, I'm going to use this analogy because there's no reason for me to lie to you in the middle of the night. I'm up late having this conversation with you. Why would I lie? Part of the reason that fluoride was put into the water is because dental care was poor and everyone did not have the government had taken away the limited amount of dental access that they were given and put that responsibility back on the citizens. People weren't going to the dentist because it cost too much, and they still don't do that now. So with that little bit of fluoride in your drinking water, it's helping your teeth remain in your mouth. Now,
not right.
We all know people that say they don't do drugs, but they have meth teeth. And we know they tell you kids don't do drugs. If you do drugs, when I was coming up, Tiff, what the fuck are we being censored for? When we were coming up, they said, this is your brain. The next scene said, this is your brain on drugs with a frying egg in a pan, sizzling.
It literally did. It literally did.
Those
Thanks,
commercials
Nancy.
are apparently too harmful and too traumatic for kids these days. Yet
What?
they'll pick up,
we are
any
entitled to compensation for our childhood, and I just
they'll
want to
pick
put
up
that out there.
anything and put it in their mouth, right? People are putting literally anything in their mouths these days. Like
Kids were eating Tide Pods a few years ago. Tide Pods. Tide Pods.
Thank you for that G-rated example, because I was like, Gene came on the scene and started talking about eating the booty like groceries. Now y'all got shit mouth all the time. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. My point is, people put anything in their mouth, and now you have meth teeth. And without fluoride in your mouth, everyone's gonna have meth teeth. Now, one thing that the people in the United States are known for globally is for being vain, right? So we like good teeth. Y'all were out there. Last year, and I'm talking to the Black community because y'all did this. You people created a veneer tech. Like that was a real job. You were out here talking
jail,
about,
right?
you were a veneer. You said what?
Isn't he in jail?
No, he's dead. And he wasn't the only one, but the one you're talking about, he has passed away. He's passed on. He's no longer with us. And it wasn't because of
I
veneers.
did not know he had gone.
But he was out here like that. He did go to jail for that, because you need to go to school before you start putting teeth in somebody's mouth. You know what I'm saying? There was a woman. There was a woman here in the New York City. She was an immigrant, and she was running a full dentist office out of her apartment.
But
she's in jail.
Was she a dentist in her home country?
She was, and because it's hard for immigrants to get dental care here, she was. Now the thing was, ma'am, it's one thing to be giving cleanings, but performing oral surgery in your apartment in Queens is not. You can't do that.
No,
I mean,
you can't do that.
You can't. You just can't.
You've got to refer them.
And we're talking about veneer techs and makeshift dentist offices, but we're actually headed back there where you're like everything that this country was and got better for is we're headed right back to that place. Like we're back to backroom abortions and women throwing themselves down steps, because in certain countries, if something goes wrong with your baby, you have to have that baby. Wow. What kind of life is that?
An American one.
My God, today.
I just wanted to pull up the 14th Amendment because I mentioned Section 1. This is the first sentence of Section 1 specifically. All persons, all, not some, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They're born here, you got to follow the laws here. Are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. All persons. The Trump administration issued executive order.
I know you hear me laughing.
141. So I do. 14160. Because it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like the things that are, first of all, the things that are being argued before the Supreme Court, and I should have said this in the beginning of this block, the Supreme Court gets thousands of cases that they pick and choose what they want to allow to be argued in their court and what they want to actually take up. They take a fraction of those cases. So the fact that they even took up this case, knowing what it would do and how it would put birthright citizenship into question, is a problem. And I really try to
telling the number of cases that they have denied other presidents and then turned around and chose. So any
or other people or other organizations, because it's not just the president that can take a case to the Supreme Court.
I understand that, but I said president specifically.
You understand that we're talking to the people.
And my point is, people will try to tell you that everything is operating as usual. People that are supporting this president will also tell you that he's restoring America. He's bringing things like. But if you don't know what America was, or how America got to where it is now, or who America really is, you think this restoration is something that we should all be welcoming. This is
Let me
not
say
something
this,
that we want any part of.
and many Americans don't. The Make America Great Again campaign stems from the same campaign that Hitler used in Nazi Germany as he was building the Third Reich.
The Nazis
See?
also
Is
got
it
their
Nazis or
blueprint.
Stalin? It might have been the communists.
It might, I don't know. I just know that the Nazis got their playbook from America. So,
And they said we took it too far.
Exactly. They didn't want to go that
Hitler
far.
said we took it too far. Hitler said chattel slavery was too far. Like, can you?
I mean, his alternative was killing them in mass. So I guess we can argue.
Put people in internment camps. Like, there is no.
We've done that since the existence of the country, which is why I know it can happen again.
Which is how we know it can happen again. Here's the thing. With this birthright citizenship case, universal injunctions case in the Supreme Court, I have two more that I need to talk about very briefly because we spent way too much time on this first one. But the United States tries to play supremacy Olympics. Like, we are the greatest country in the world. We have the best rights in the world. They take the best care of their citizens, but you got to be a citizen. And, depending on what that looks like for you, now the 14th Amendment may or may not apply for you. We are supposed to be the best country in the world. Yet and still, we have some of the most racist policies still on the books. We were considered 3/5 of a human when the Constitution was first written. The only people who were allowed to vote when the Constitution was first written was white male property owners. So now we have people being.
And what was the primary property that they owned?
Us.
Okay.
Hi.
I just wanted to make.
We were the
because
property.
When you just say that like that, you're like, oh well, they had more houses just like they do now, right? Or they got bigger houses just like they do now. No, absolutely
They owned
not.
Humans.
Absolutely not. They owned humans. They sold humans. They bred humans. They demeaned the humanity in these humans. They made slavery hereditary. So when they tell you we should just move on, this country doesn't move on from anything else. It doesn't move on from anything else. It doesn't move on from anything else. It holds on to this Constitution like it is the Bible.
We have not
states
been free
that have
long.
done their people wrong have rewritten the damn Constitution. It is not a document that should be revered when it has a 3/5 compromise in it that says these human beings can be considered 3/5 of a person to give you additional votes
and counted in your property. And depending on if they were able-bodied, female, male, child, what kind of worker were they is what determined the dollar value. So no, I'm not surprised that in that country, on that stolen land, that the Supreme Court is now not necessarily calling into question birthright citizenship, but they definitely didn't make it easy for the case to be argued again before them, and definitely don't have hope. So yes, you mentioned that the ACLU brought about a class action suit. That essentially is going to happen a lot now that universal injunctions are no longer a thing. There will be a plethora of class action lawsuits. But again, that's the point, is to bog down the system, slow the processes down, because if they can at least do that, then number one, you're going to pay more attention to the whiz that's before the curtain than what's actually happening behind the curtain. And that is ultimately the goal. I keep telling people that, he's doing all of these things, the administration is doing all of these things. I still haven't let go that they fired the National Archivist who's responsible for publishing the Constitution. And that happened months ago, but nobody was talking about it. You know why we actually have 28 amendments, but the 28th
Nobody
Amendment
knows
is
who
not
that is.
published?
That's why they weren't talking about it. And that I don't know that that's by design, but most people think the Constitution is published. Like, what do we need that for?
The 28th Amendment, which is the Equal Rights Amendment, was actually technically ratified by the needed number of states in order to have it published in the Constitution that would give women equal rights in this nation. The National Archivist would not publish it because of a technicality in the deadline. That National Archivist was fired after Trump took office. I don't know why, but I'm concerned because that's who's responsible for the Constitution publishing.
I know why she was fired, because she's Black, and they also considered what she was, that she was a DEI hire, and they said that, and so they came for every Black
That
person
was for the
with any
Library of
semblance
Congress.
of wasn't the I thought this lady was Black as well.
I don't think so, but I know the Library of Congress.
The librarian.
Yeah.
The head librarian.
The master librarian of the country. Anywho.
But again, like I get, and again, where I am with this is, and maybe we can sidebar because I know we don't have time for this tonight. I really want to know, and this is me being dead ass genuine. I want to know why that's important, or why it's important to you, because I have an idea of why any of these people, and why it was, why because again, if you can't say it off the tip of your tongue, or if you're explaining, then you're losing the argument, right? So if you're explaining why this person is needed, and that's where I am with it. I also, my thing is, I get that she didn't publish it because of a technicality.
It was a white male.
To me is par for the course, because all of this following things to the letter of the law is something that they demand, and when and if they lose power, they'll be right back to demanding that the Constitution is followed to the letter of the law and to the T, and in ways that it's always been interpreted. But for them right now, they're not doing it, and you need a country with laws. But it would be disingenuous for me not to ask, what has that done for those of us that have continued to follow it in a place where supremacy leads the way? And I would argue it's always led the way. I don't know a time that this country has not been run by white supremacists.
It hasn't. There isn't.
I'm thinking really hard now. Let me see. I know pretty much. I'm going through the 1776.
You think I've got to move on to the next case because we've been on this for
I don't think that's ever happened.
Well, the next case that also deals with white supremacy, but now let's add in a bit of homophobia, shall we? Kennedy versus Braidwood Management. This is the Supreme Court case that was about the Preventative Services Task Force that is put together by the HHS, Health and Human Services. So this is essentially a nonpartisan task force that is put together by HHS in order to determine, once the Affordable Care Act came out, it was like, hey, this is supposed to cover preventative services. What's deemed a preventative service? So HHS was tasked with putting together a nonpartisan task force. It has 6 citizens on this task force that meet and decide what a preventative service, what counts as a preventative service, and also what medications should be included in those preventative services. So essentially a case was brought before the Supreme Court to say that these are superior officers and they should be appointed by the president. The majority, this was all of the decisions that were released on Friday were 6-3 decisions, 6, of course, being the majority. So the majority in this case said, absolutely not. These are inferior officers. They do not need to be appointed by the president. Them being uh, uh, selected by the HHS, they're inferior offices. They're fine. They are up under this agency. We're not doing this. The task force stays. That was the decision. Here's why this decision is important. This was brought on because the plaintiffs in the case did not want PrEP, HIV prevention medication, to be included in the preventative services. So, had the Supreme Court decided the other way, medications like that, along with other, we'll just say, medications and preventative services, may have been on the chopping block as far as healthcare providers not having to provide them. So that is a win, because they actually decided that, hey, we're not going to do this. The preventative task force is constitutional. They do not need to be appointed by the president. That doesn't need to happen. And they upheld the HHS preventative health mandates, which includes access to PrEP and cancer screenings under the Affordable Care Act. Again, if you want to read more on any of these stories, it's on BLKALERTS.com. The last one, even though there were, like I said, 5 decisions that were released on Friday out of 6 that we were expecting, the 6 that we were expecting that we did not get is the Louisiana redistricting case. Why is this case so important? I'll tell you. Well, last year during the presidential election and right before the presidential election, multiple states had to redraw their maps. Georgia, which is where I am, was one of them. You can have political gerrymandering, but not racial gerrymandering. Political gerrymandering is legal. What is the difference? Racial gerrymandering is when the legislature, your state legislature, gets together and draws the line on the maps based on where races live. If they want to create a black district or they want to create a white district, then racial gerrymandering is them looking at the census and saying, well, more black people are concentrated here, white people are concentrated here, so let's create this district, let's split this up. And they try to draw the lines based on the concentration of race in certain areas. That is illegal. Political gerrymandering, however, is not. Political gerrymandering is when they say, well, this area over here votes mostly Republican, and this area over here votes mostly Democratic. That is legal to draw lines according to those political affiliations, and they can submit that. Here's why this had a hang up for the last couple of years. The Supreme Court nixed a piece in a section of the Voting Rights Act that forced any state who was redrawing their maps or making changes to submit their changes to the Department of Justice in order to be reviewed. Once they stripped that, multiple states submitted maps that then organizations like ACLU here in Georgia, I believe Fair Fight, and a couple of other organizations, NAACP, filed a lawsuit saying these maps are racially gerrymandered and you cannot do this. A couple of states got away with it. Georgia did not on one. We had to redraw the maps. It went back to the state legislature. They called a special session in the fall. They redrew the maps. They were still gerrymandered. Don't get me started on that. But essentially, the case in Louisiana has gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. We were expecting that decision on Friday. We did not get it. This case it's a consolidation of cases that they'll consolidate similar cases into one case that they then hear arguments for. And this Louisiana case was one of them. This case will now be re-argued in the next October term. So at the beginning of this, for those who joined us late, we are in the October 2024 term of the Supreme Court. The next term starts in October 2025. The Louisiana case will be argued in that term, which means it probably won't actually be argued until, I'm estimating, next February or March. which means this redistricting case in Louisiana probably won't actually be decided, or the opinion won't be handed down, maybe until this time next year. Why does that matter? Because
Definitely
next year
June.
is a midterms election. In this case, what the big deal about Supreme Court cases is, yes, they are for specific states or actions or anything like that, but they also set nationwide precedent. So once a Supreme Court decision is handed down, it sets precedent, or basically what other people follow. It sets the rule for the rest of the states. So if Louisiana wins this redistricting case, it could mean bad news for a lot of Southern states and organizations and organizers in the state to do voting rights and electoral organizing work. That was a mouthful, but that's the Louisiana case. That's the Trump v. Casa case and the Kennedy versus Braidwood management case. Alex, did I miss anything that you think our folks need to know?
No, not that I can recall.
Fantastic. We've got to talk about something I don't want to talk about next, but that is the Supreme Court cases. If you have any questions on the Supreme Court cases, first of all, if you want to read more about any of those Supreme Court cases or anything else for that matter that we are discussing tonight, you want to make sure that you visit BLKALERTS.com for all of the headlines and stories that we're talking about. There is specifically an article that lists all of the cases that were dropped on Friday, all 5. There is an article called SCOTUS Drops 5 Major Cases. So you can look under the politics section, and all of the cases have individual breakdowns, and you'll be able to read more on each of those cases. And if you have questions, comment in this video, or you can comment on those articles, and a member of our writing team will answer those questions for you. Next, we have to talk about the big, beautiful, horrible, horrendous, ugly, terrible, over 1,000-page bill that I just don't want to talk about. And we've also got to talk about the 2 men who were recently found hanging. So if you are sensitive to that, this is your trigger warning. We will talk about that shortly. We'll give another trigger warning before we hit that topic. But first, the big, beautiful, let me name it correctly. One big, beautiful bill, as it is quite literally called. This bill is over 1,000 pages at this point. Alex, you mentioned this earlier, that they had to read it on the floor in order to actually have Republicans know what it said, because many of them had not read it, and some of them even admitted to that in different interviews, saying, well, I didn't know it said that. I hadn't read that section. Okay, I just don't understand. This bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, House Resolution 1, is a huge budget bill that hits absolutely everything, from the EPA to the FDA to Medicaid and Medicare funding to health insurance to you name it. It's in there. EPA, with some of, you mentioned this earlier as well, Alex, some of our clean air, clean water, which the Supreme Court has already stripped some of the regulations in multiple cases that they have heard during this October term, where some of our regulations are being stripped away from our air and our water, which then funnels down into your states, because your state legislatures, particularly your red states, are paying attention to what's happening in the Supreme Court and Congress, and what regulations.
Answer for the viewers why red states seem to be the target of so much, when they are actually people that mostly voted for this president.
They're the most compliant. They are the ones who conservatives tend to lean towards, give the power back to the states. So, for example, Roe v. Wade, that was overturned in the Dobbs decision. The decision was, give the power to the states, let them decide what they do for their citizens and for their people. Well, in red states, that tends to be fiscal conservatorship. So I, again, live in Georgia. We have millions just sitting in our state reserves. We could fully expand Medicaid, but our conservative governor will not do it. Now, he has said he has expanded Medicaid, he has not. And it definitely is not a full expansion of what some other states have seen. But what he did do was create a new portal that Georgia specifically uses. We have a system called Georgia Pathways, and we have a completely separate portal that is not connected to healthcare.gov or the Affordable Care Act at all. When you talk about regulations like clean air, clean water, things like that, you are looking at the privatization of certain services. So if we can strip some of these regulations in your air and in your water, then we can sell off pieces of these things to private companies, and then we can put some of that money in our pockets. So, for example, there were regulations that were stripped through the EPA of our Clean Air Act and our Clean Water Act through multiple cases through the Supreme Court. One of the bills that I saw in our state legislature this past session was them trying to essentially sell off part of the water supply in our coastal cities along the coast of Georgia. If they can sell it to a private company, then they can pocket some of that money. That's it.
Well, I think
Follow the money.
I think the uh, and I'm using their words. So I think part of the reason I appreciate your answer, because I fully think that that is 100% true. What's also true is that it continues because, again, of a lack of education and blind trust. And what they are actually telling you is that they're putting more money back in your pocket. So you
Right,
phrased it in a
right.
way that we know to be true. But if you're in a red state, and again, I have to draw this parallel because it's very important. Most likely, and I tell people tell me all the time, and I live in probably in arguably one of the most expensive places in the world. It's very expensive, and I understand that. When I start to talk about why, which there's never, again, when you're explaining, you're losing. I just think it's important that we parallel these two. People will tell me all the time, well, I gotta live where I live because it's cheap. And the it's cheap because your government does not believe that they have any responsibility to take care of you. And that is terrible.
I
It's
mean,
terrible. I mean, it's just, and I think that they use that we're going to put more money back into the hands of hardworking Americans, as if they can't do both at the same time. If you're giving tax breaks to billionaires, and again, that's the talking point that the Dems have been using to combat this crazy ass bill. But to hell with the bill. Last year, Amazon paid $0 in taxes. Now,
which
you,
is
I,
just
me, we all see
crazy.
Amazon trucks. We see more Amazon trucks on the street now than we see FedEx and UPS. We see
Yeah,
Amazon everywhere doing everything. They can get it to you tomorrow. These people that are making billions upon billions upon billions per day paid zero taxes. How much taxes did they take out of your check in the last pay period?
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I do, because I want you, and not just you, but you, Joe Schmo listener, I want you to look at the taxes that were taken out of your last check, and then add those taxes up. I mean, you should see that on your W-2 or your 1099 or your 1040, whatever. But you don't have to do that. Just go into a portal, look at your check stub, and add up those taxes. And
Most of them
even
will
what
do it for you. It'll say
and,
year to
and,
date.
whatever the number is, just know that Amazon didn't even pay that. And that's what Republicans are fighting for. That's what this other party, they're
To
literally fighting
continue.
for these people. And it happened already because of Donald Trump. So he's here again, and they want this to be permanent again for the next 10 years.
Oh,
And
yes. I'm glad that you
to
said
pay
that.
for that, they have to they've done nothing but smoke and mirrors. And what has happened when America, which is obsessed with reality, has elected another reality star, you've been bamboozled by smoke, mirrors, and television, flashy graphics, and empty promises. And while they said he's going to put money, like this man said so many things that he was going to do on day one, and he has not done a damn thing.
No.
And the crazy thing about it is, for his supporters, he doesn't have to. They're not even really asking for anything from him. Now, what they didn't ask was for him to come in and take things away. And so
they were fine with it being taken away as long as it wasn't taken away from them.
right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. They haven't done anything. He hasn't necessarily done anything, but he was taking away, and he was announcing that he was getting rid of the DEI. He was announcing that he was coming in and taking the immigrants. And again, you were all for it. And then now there's no one there to run your farm. And now your crops are dying.
Literally,
And
he's not making that up.
somewhere out in the zeitgeist, because again, I don't know how everyone was swindled or bamboozled. You've had a country that you've been propositioning college and prepping people for 13 years of lower education.
I actually want to
And
read this first sentence of this article that you sent to me from a conservative news source. The most audacious con game in American political history is unfolding before our eyes, and the
wow.
marks don't even realize they're being fleeced. Republicans have successfully courted working class voters with promises of putting America first and bringing back good paying jobs, only to govern with an agenda that systematically picks their pockets while enriching the wealthy elite they
My
claim
God,
to
today.
oppose.
Well, and let me tell you something. That is true.
Yale Lab said that this bill would actually make the rich 20% richer and the poor 20% poor.
I know. It's so sad. It's so sad. And the reason I did that thing about taxes is because you're gonna see that number go up, while the rich don't. They
Theirs is
already
going to
don't
go
have a
down.
number. It's not only some of them don't even have a number, and they'll
Yeah.
be getting refunds of your money because they're gonna say they gave you a job, and that to them that is their government service.
And
So
it'll be
you're
paid for with the dollars that were supposed to go into your Medicaid or food assistance or SNAP
Well,
benefits.
I mean, here's the thing. You don't feel it, and Americans really don't. They're conditioned this way. Don't really feel it until it happens to them. And the thing is, it is happening to Americans. It's happening to Americans that have children that are disabled. It's happening to Americans who have elderly parents. Um, what and I'll tell you how this is going to affect you. And you're like, well, of course, you live in Atlanta, you live in New York, I live in a small town. I don't really, yeah, your small town hospital that's probably already 20 miles away from your home, it's going to close. The money that's supplementing that hospital right now is gone. And so right now they're doing what they can, and as the hospitals start to fill up because they're taking Medicaid away from sick people, where do sick people go? They go to hospitals. Well, if the hospitals aren't getting paid, they're going to take the people in until they can't anymore.
And that'll
And
happen very quickly.
oh, it will.
And I'm glad you said
And then
disabilities, because I do want to highlight too, not just physical disabilities, in what some people call invisible disabilities as well, or mental disabilities. If you have ADHD, autism, any of those, bipolar disorder, depression. Like these count in that category as well. So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
And their answer is that you should get over it and go to work. And again, you don't have to take our word for how callous these people are. Joni Ernst, she's a lawmaker on the other side. And when this, you wouldn't have seen this in your feed because you probably don't follow this. I wish I didn't see her ugly ass either, but she basically said to her constituents that we're all gonna die. And when there was outrage to her callousness, she went to a funeral home. I'm sorry, not a funeral home, because that would have been decent. She went to a cemetery and then made a video sarcastically saying, I'm here to prove my point that we're all going to die. Sorry you were offended, but it's just the truth. So they don't care how fast that happens. They're really looking to expedite it for a number of us. And it's a really sad sight. This bill is not a good thing for America. It's not a good look at all. It's just not a good look. If you want an idea of what's in it, because it continues to change and fluctuate, Google Project
literally
2025.
as we speak.
It's just Google Project 2025. That thing that they said they have nothing to do with. I mean, that's the only policy that they had. They didn't have any policies. If you remember, you may not remember, Donald Trump was asked if he had policies, and he said he had concepts of a plan. He had nothing. These people live by they go from culture war to culture war. So if they can find something that's going to divide people, they will use that to win. They will use that to distract the people so that they can confuse you and pass legislation in the middle of the night. And it's not them passing it in the middle of the night. It's not something new. That's not a new playbook. Their governors do the same thing. Ron DeSantis put an abortion ban into Florida, signed that law into effect in the middle of the night. Politicians are flashy. Governors are flashy. They want the press. They want the lights. They want the pomp, the circumstance, and a cake from Publix there, that they can have after they sign this legislation. So why are you signing things in the middle of the night?
Because if we can push a 900 and something page document in the middle of a Friday night, then maybe Americans and our other colleagues won't be paying attention. They started reading that bill Saturday at 11:08 a.m. They didn't finish until 3:30 p.m. on Sunday. It's now over 1,000 pages. It's over 1,000 pages that will add $3.3 trillion to our national deficit, according to the Congressional Business Office. It will have $2.2 trillion in tax cuts. It will take 11.8 million people off of health insurance, minus $1.1 trillion in Medicaid assistance, and minus $186 billion with a B as in Bravo in food assistance. Gone.
It's good. It's out of there.
Gone. SNAP benefits, gone. Medicaid, gone. Health insurance, you're out of here. You don't really need that preventative screening that we just talked about in the last Supreme Court case. You don't need that. You don't need a physical. You don't need a doctor's appointment. You don't need to go to the dentist. You don't need any of that extra.
What you need to do is work.
Funding.
You
need to go to work.
That's
so
all
that you can follow the thrifty food plan, which consists of a diet required to feed a family of 4 persons consisting of a man and a woman, 20 through 50, a child 6 through 8, a child 9 through 11 years of age. That's the thrifty food plan, according to this, where it lists what the secretary shall make household size adjustments based on the following ratios of household size as a percentage of the maximum 4-person allotment. And it lists all of the percentages. And I just don't. We
I'm
watched
sorry,
over.
but I don't. I know that you just read a definition, and it's kind of late, so I kind of didn't get it all because as you were reading it, I actually know. Again, as a student of history, I'm gonna take y'all back to a place that this country has been before. Now, you did say that let me know how accurate I got this, and let me know if is it me, am I off? You did say that a fixed allowance of essentially provisions allotted to individuals, and it's a limited portion. um is is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna add some
Based
words
on
to
a
that, right?
four-person household,
Okay. All right, so
man, woman, 2 children.
and I'm gonna add some words to that because I used I was picking and choosing words, but again, words matter. Words have meaning. Words are things that we have to pay attention to. Words are things that they're trying to tell you. They. Here's the thing about these people. They tell you what they're gonna do.
They do.
But we're not. This show is not about white supremacy. But white supremacy
This
is why you
country
believe
is.
these people. It's that's the only reason that you believe them. It's not because of loyalty. It's not about party lines. It's not about religion. It's not about you believe these people because of white supremacy. You believe innately that white is right if white people are doing it. And also what you've seen with your eyes is that if white people are doing it, it's going to advance. It's going to plow through. It's going to run over people. It's going to take over. It's going to take things from people. And so I'm not talking about white people. I'm talking about whiteness and the evil that is white supremacy is literally why we're seeing what we're seeing. Back to the words that you used, I think because this is really important. You did say a fixed allowance of, and I'm gonna read this as it's defined. A fixed allowance of provisions, typically food allotted to individuals. I'm going to add this part of the sentence, especially during times of shortage or for military personnel. These are called rations. These are called rations, okay? They represent a limited portion of goods or services often implemented during emergencies or periods of scarcity. Rations can also refer to the act of restricting the consumption of a commodity. So, which is it? Are we in a time of limited access? Is this an emergency because we literally just got out of a plague? We just got out of one of those. Or do they believe that the basic things that you need to live are a commodity? Do they believe that you have too much? Do they believe that while they're taking everything away from you, that you still have too much, so they're going to take more? Oh, shit, you can breathe. Well, I guess we can just pollute the air. Fuck the air. We don't need air. Who needs air? It always starts small. They've got test beds that they use. And again, they've been killing people in small cities for years. And these people, and I always hate, I hate quoting immoral people. I really do. And I'm not going to quote him. I'm just going to say Lyndon B. Johnson. And you go look up his most famous quote. And they're using his playbook. They're just using his playbook. And I had to go there because I didn't hear anything else. As you read those words and gave the definition of rations without saying it, I'm like, what? I didn't know you were going to read that.
It's in the bill. It's literally in the bill.
So what is the commodity, right? Again, again. And a lot of
Food,
people were not
apparently.
paying attention. They were not paying attention during Obama's election. They thought that this is just, how politics is. People are just messy like this. So but you guys don't understand. The Affordable Care Act, not a care, but the Affordable Care Act, which the Republicans are the ones that wanted. Anyway, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, literally has done so much for Americans that the Republicans literally they built their entire party on dismantling it. And they did not stop attempting to dismantle it until it failed for the last time in 2018. And John McCain, RIP, literally a Republican tanked that bill because of his constituents, his poor constituents. He tanked that because that, and they're so good at this this division game. Like, when, especially people that are getting played, they never believe this. They never believe it. Like, they get played, and it's not, when you come and talk to me, once you realize that they've been playing in your damn face, then you want to come have the conversation. I'm not interested in having the conversation with you, because I tried to tell you, someone tried to tell you. These same people heard that they were going to lose access to their health care through Medicare or Medicaid, or when asked how they feel about the Affordable Care Act, they really love the fact that it now covers their pre-existing conditions, because this is a sick, fat-ass country. This is a fat-ass country with a bunch of people that suck down Big Macs and big gulps and very large high fructose drinks all day long. If you go to any part of this country, there are people that start slurping down Diet Cokes. Really they start drinking their heart attack at 8 o'clock in the morning. So when you have a condition that's now covered because the government says that your insurance provider that you're paying out the ass for must cover it, before Barack Obama, that did not exist. Him giving that to America was so these people that have this 1,000-page bill feel like healthcare is a commodity, and they've got this country marching to the beat of that stupid ass drum. There is no other progressive, democratic, socially democratic republic on the planet that does not take care of the healthcare of their citizens. Healthcare and food and water are human rights. So before we fuck all this shit up and knock everything over, because that's what it's going to take to get some of these people to wake up. We can't deviate from the truth that we need those things. All rules are essentially made up. This country essentially made up. Tiff said at the beginning of the show, they came here, saw independence from a king who they considered a tyrant, made up all the rules or laws, said that they found this land when people were already here. So if people are already here and they said they found it, which one is like what the truth is, these people will run over, they will bulldoze whatever the fuck they want, including you, your family, your health care, and say, well, what, it's your patriotic duty to just take us. You need to take this raw. It's insane. It's insane. It's not normal, and it's not happening in other parts of the world until people, leaders, opportunists in other countries see what's happening over here, and some asshole rises up in these countries thinking that they can emulate the orange man. It's happened in Brazil. It's happened in El Salvador. It's happened in Venezuela. Russia has... Tiff, when we were born, there was no damn Russia.
USSR.
Soviet Union. My book said that landmass That landmass had multiple names in my 13 years of public education that ended with a Georgia education. I didn't start with one, thank God. And that's probably why never mind.
Well, I told you, my mother said after we moved to Georgia, I came down here and came home and said, these people are stupid. They were like 2 grades behind where I was in Ohio.
And also the Southern accent, and there's a stereotype behind that. So aside from them being behind, and then also talking to you in words with a draw you couldn't understand, you drew the only conclusion that you could draw.
At 7. Dumb. Now, as I continue to progress through the Georgia public school system, I got my own draw. But I also had family members who were civil rights leaders and activists in their own rights. And so I had the benefit of getting a whole separate education at home, and then went to a private college and got a completely different education at my historically Black college, that I got to that college and felt dumb as hell. Dumb as hell. I felt dumb as hell at Spelman for my first year. I was like, I didn't learn a damn thing in public school, clearly, because what the hell is this?
Well, I mean, also, I know I get where you're going, but I always say you don't learn to read and write in college.
You don't.
And so I don't want to hear about people's college education. I don't. I love to hear it. Thanks so much for not you, but you know how I am. Because if you can't put a sentence together, that's because Miss Buffington in 4th grade
didn't teach you how your subjects and verbs are supposed to agree. But they don't write in cursive anymore.
Actually, Georgia's bringing it back. Georgia's bringing it back. Did I tell you that? Did we talk about that? I wrote an article about it.
I don't care.
I think that's phenomenal because but again, this is America doing America, taking things out without any foresight. Like, oh, these people, it's writing. We've got computers. So you've got a generation of dumbasses that can't write their signature. Can't write a signature.
Yes.
And it's not that this is not just Georgia.
No.
Georgia is insisted, and me sitting here praising the Georgia Department of Education is something that I can tell you I never thought I would ever do that.
And I don't do it consistently.
It deserves no praise. I didn't know what a school was. I never heard of that before. I still don't know what that is.
I
just,
the big beautiful bill is not beautiful is the point, and it is going to
big ugly. We need to call it big ugly because that's what it is. It's big. And
that's
ugly.
What I've been calling it.
It's nasty.
It's a big, ugly, terrible 1,018 page bill that they are still arguing. It looks like the Senate has held the voting marathon on the bill. They were voting on, like I said, over 200, I think it's 278 proposed amendments. Not that anyone is necessarily going to be a nerd like me, but if you were to go to the congressional congress.gov and look at the bill, you would see underneath the amendments, it has some representative names multiple times. That is because they are going through submitting multiple proposals to strike multiple sections in this very, very, very large bill. And so their names are there on repeat. There are lots of sections. I'm not even going to try to say how many. It's lots and lots and lots of sections. Repeals and rescissions. They want to repeal EPA rules relating to greenhouse gas and multi-pollutant emission standards. They want to repeal diesel emissions reductions. They want to repeal and rescind funding related to air pollution. They want to repeal and rescind funding and regulations related to low emissions electricity program. They want to repeal and rescind funding for parts of the Clean Air Act, like we just talked about. They want to repeal and rescind parts of the Environmental Product Declaration Act. These are just some of the things that they want to do. They want a moratorium on the implementation of eligibility and enrollment in Medicare savings programs, a moratorium on implementation of rules relating to eligibility and enrollment of Medicaid, CHIP, and the basic health program. That's on here a couple of times. They want to change the Medicaid provider screening requirements. They want a moratorium on staffing standards for long-term care facilities under Medicare and Medicaid programs. They want to ensure accurate payments to pharmacies under Medicaid. You know what that translates to? Your pharmacy is taking longer to fulfill your prescriptions because they have to go through a lot more red tape to ensure that the payments are accurate. They want to reduce federal payments to prohibited entities, DEI, Medicaid, Medicare, certain programs. That's what that means. They want to, let's see what else is in here. These are just some of the sections. Enhancement. Here's an enhancement of the Department of Defense resources to improve the capabilities of the United States Indo-Pacific Command. You know who has one of the largest budgets in this federal government's budget? The Department of Defense. The Department of Defense has one of, and has always, in every administration, always has one of the largest budgets in the entire budget for our federal government. Not only that, there are a plethora of private companies and entities who get a huge chunk of some of those contracts because they're weapons contractors. And so they get some of those private contracts from our government. And we are talking not millions, but billions of dollars in our Department of Defense budget in what some of the private contractors get. They want to have Pell Grants changed. They want different regulatory regulations and executive actions. They want to change natural gas exports and imports programs. They want to rescind some of the sections of the Inflation Reduction Act programs. They want to change the general work requirement, age requirement for, this is for SNAP. They want to have restrictions on internet expenses. They want to change the alien immigrant SNAP eligibility and emergency food assistance, the safety nets, the conservations, rural schools and forestry, energy, horticulture. They want to change the agricultural trade promotion program. They want to, and it's the only enhancement is Department of Defense for improving the quality of life for military personnel. Now, I think that that's great. We need to treat our veterans much better than we do. Resources for shipbuilding, resources for integrated air and missile defense, resources for munitions, that's ammunitions, and weaponry. Defense supply chain resiliency, low-cost weapons into production. All of this is enhancements for the Department of Defense. I don't see anything under enhancements for any other department, actually. It's all Department of Defense. And that is just, again, some of the sections. The repeal section is long, the Medicaid section is
too
long.
small, but I mean, they want to rescind life as you know it. And that's, honestly.
Oh, and here's the fees section that we were talking about earlier. Immigration fees. They want to change the immigration fees. It's a terrible bill, is what is the point that we want to really drive home here.
It's pretty awful.
It's a terrible bill. It's an awful bill. So when we say that our democracy is being threatened, we're talking about these Supreme Court decisions. We're talking about this terrible, big, terrible bill that they are still arguing in Congress right now, that they're trying to push through because Trump has given them a deadline to push it.
It's a fake ass deadline too.
By July 4th. It's a terrible fake deadline.
It's a fake ass deadline. The deadline doesn't even, it means nothing. He's performative. He's performative. So
but
like he wants to do everything. He wants to do it on Independence Day. And that's what he wants. and these people are afraid of him. They want to make him king, and they want to enable him to be king. And it's up to you to decide that you don't want to live under a king.
Because I don't. I don't. Are we ready to move on to the next topic? Are we done with this terrible ass bill?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, trigger warning for anyone who has sensitivities to the topic of suicide. We are going to talk about two cases, one in New York, one in Colorado. So this is your trigger warning. Okay. Um, Two men recently, one in Albany, New York, and another in Aurora, Colorado, were found hanging from trees. Both were deemed um, uh, suicides. They did not have lengthy investigations. They are being brought up on like Reddit threats, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of information being shared about them. Now, here's the problem. This was a black man, and I believe the other man was a Latino man, if I'm not mistaken. Um, we don't generally hang ourselves from trees in the middle of parks. These also are not isolated incidents. There were a couple of persons found hanging from trees over the last 5 to 6 years, all of them deemed suicide, none of them with what most people would consider to be a worthy investigation into the situation. Um, I have a lot of thoughts and no thoughts at all at the same time about these cases and the other cases that none of which have gotten a lot of nationwide coverage, none of which are being talked about heavily. And I just
Don't
don't
expect
even
it from
know.
this country. I don't.
I don't expect it from this country. I
I'm sorry.
don't
I
even
just
know
don't
where to
expect them
begin.
to talk about shit like that. This country has shown me that it really does not give a fuck. So I'm not one to beg. I would never beg this country to care. So I do think this is a very painful. It's very painful. I first of all, hanging from trees is something that is very painful for Black people in this country. It just is.
Right.
The sickest of us, no.
It just
So
doesn't happen. 58, a
it does
58-year-old
happen,
black
and it's
man,
happened here for a long time. But it
not
is
by our own hands.
well, and that's what I'm saying. It
A 58-year-old black man did not just hang himself from a tree in Albany, New York.
I say I have a friend that says that we've let them get away with demonizing us, insinuating to people that we are lazy and criminal. Lazy, like we were never labeled that until we started working for you motherfuckers for free. That breaking news: Black people worked for your asses for free, wiped your asses, raised your fucking babies,
Had them.
so for free. And so I don't have any grace I have no grace. I don't have an ounce of grace, and I don't have an ounce of patience. I'm out of grace, I'm out of patience. That's a very, very bad combination, because I this is you know too much. The history tells us what happens to people that know too much. They either disappear or get
Right.
disappeared.
Right.
So the reason that you don't hear about it, Tiff, the reason it's not on any network is because people can't talk about it or they'll get fired. They can't tell the truth. They can't. You
Or
can't tell.
disappear.
How are you going to get on a white man's platform and talk about his white ass and white supremacy? You can't do it effectively. You can't even really do your damn job. You really can't. And I can't placate to the bullshit, or I cannot pretend that there's a dignified truth that you can get up there and freely speak. You know, nothing in life is without consequence. So I do understand. I get this. We live in this world. Going back to where we were at the beginning, this is not the Matrix. This is not a simulation. This is real life. So you have to play this capitalist game. I don't even want to say play. You have to participate in this game for survival. And so my only thoughts here is that we are beyond compromise. And we are beyond the play. We are no longer in the place that it is safe for us to continue to just compromise and assimilate. And I don't know. I don't even know why I'm saying this. I don't really know what I don't know. I don't know who's thinking about or now realizing that they've compromised their values, their personhood. They've assimilated to a point that they don't even recognize themselves. You're a shell of yourself. You can't be honest. You can't be truthful. You don't speak up for yourself. You don't stand up for what you believe in. You don't stand up for yourself. If you don't stand up for yourself, how could I expect you to stand up for your community? I can't do that.
How do we begin to work our way into standing up for our community? Here's the thing. I have talked to quite a few people, Black people, in older generations who say integration and desegregation was one of the worst things that could have happened to our community, because it segregated our community. In desegregation, it segregated our community. How do we begin to, and I'm not even saying our community in terms of racial lines. Yes, in some instances, but not in all. How do we begin to get that feeling of community back? Because I think that's what's missing from the church. One of the many things that's missing from the church. It's one of the many things that's missing from.
I'm sorry.
It's one of the many things that's missing from communities. It's one of the many things that, like I have been saying, we are running on a compassion deficit. And I don't know that there's a way to work our way back into it, but we are running and operating at a complete compassion deficit. That when I said to some people, you know, women and children are being bombed in other countries, genocides, plural, are happening in multiple countries across the world, and heard multiple people say, well, we can't be worried about what's happening in other places. We got our own issues here. What the hell are you? What?
I would argue to you that they probably heard that at church.
It was mostly church people I heard it from. Not all, but most. We have come to, you mentioned at the top of this that I heard we are the keepers of peace at church and now's the time to pray. No.
I mean, I didn't say you heard that. I said that churches are saying that. I wasn't going to identify your church.
I don't care. I heard it.
I was going to do that. I mean, I don't care, but here's the thing. I do agree that segregation was an awful thing. And again, you have civil rights leaders. People will not admit that these people are demented and senile, and because they've like turned into these conservative bigots at the end of their lives. But the thing is, if you understand the supremacy playbook, and I have to toe the line with this, right? Because when I mention it, unless I do a class, and class coming soon, am I a white supremacist.com. You can register beginning Saturday. But and this is for everybody, because there are a lot of white supremacists walking among us that are not white. That's neither here nor there. I think that conversation is important because the supremacy playbook is all about control. So if you don't know history, then you're like, okay, well, I heard, or I felt, or I saw, or I read, or you got big bits and pieces in your social sciences, your social studies, or your non-civics classes. You got bits and pieces of what happened. So you understand that slavery ended, but many of you learned about Juneteenth in 2020. Like you had never heard of it before.
Or 2024.
We celebrated Juneteenth in my house. Like we did. And we also celebrated Kwanzaa. Like, and my mom was very specific, and she ensured that we knew these things, right? I don't know if my siblings still do, but and so I'm not that wasn't a stray. That's just saying we got to call things as they are, because if you don't really understand the value of it, it's just something that you knew. But we also have to understand that we got Mexicans that celebrate Juneteenth as well, have their own Juneteenth celebration, and as big as this history goes, that slavery thing that you saw, that you heard of, that happened in America, it was a different thing. You can go back, and I know the tropes, like, and this is part of the playbook. They'll tell you, well, your people sold you to us. It was your people that did it first. There was no type of chattel slavery that was going on in the world until it wasn't happening like that. But what happened was they wanted to send us back, but they had already done the most vile thing and stripped us of humanity, of name, of culture. And so there was no way to send us back. The same Congress that's deliberating over your life right now is the same Congress that told Abraham Lincoln, we don't have no money to send him back. Figure something else out. He comes up with 40 acres and a mule. He comes up with that. They don't want to pay for that either. Isn't it odd that when it comes to black and brown people, Congress has a history of just fucking them over in this country? I just took you back to 1865 without blinking, because that's really what happened. That's how it happened, just like that. And so you know what happened? They had to get this country was in a civil war. And people talk about, oh, there's one side that's craving it. They're salivating for it. Others are fearful that it's going to happen again. But that war was over black bodies being property. The Confederate States, Tiffanie and I grew up in the South. There was no absence of Confederate flags everywhere. And I don't know if it's still going on down there. I'm sure it is. Dixieland and Dixie, and this is my heritage, and your heritage is fucked up. I used to say that was a line that I was good for. You want to tell me about heritage with your racist ass? Because you got to call it how you see it. But if you don't know it, you'll let them feed you that bullshit. These Confederates were treasonous. These were people that, I mean, you could argue that Americans were treasonous when they abandoned England and said that they were leaving because of tyranny, but they like to call themselves settlers. This is a different conversation. But these people were treasonous over a country that was created here because they wanted to keep property. So what happened? You free these. You say what you did. You have in your documents that you Emancipation Proclamation. You've emancipated these people from being property. Now, the country did not rewrite the 3/5 compromise. They just added an amendment to a document that already exists. Because remember, they think this document is sacred. So in that non-rewrite, they add the amendment, give you freedom, but now they've stripped you of your identity. They stripped you of your culture. Most likely, they've taken you from your parents. You could be in a different part of the country. They have forbidden you from being able to read or write, literally illegal for property to learn how to read. What happens when the government takes your property? Well, in this country, you get a refund. So you know what happened? The Confederate States received refunds.
On people, humans.
Your ancestors were the first tax refunds. So they refund it. They refund these people, create a prospect of generational wealth, because you had these wealthy plantation owners that got wealthy off of the backs of the people that they owned as property. So they get a refund from the country after trying to overthrow the country. They get a refund. Like, this is the actual history. They get a refund, and now you got this wealth gap of people that are still in fear of their lives, going back to work on these farms that they just got emancipated from for pennies on the dollar, for 5 cents for 100 bales of cotton, picking cotton with their bare hands. And they're back working for massa now, but they got to get paid. But they're getting paid pennies on the dollar. So these same people found ways to build up their communities, build up their societies. And this same country, these same people came and they have destroyed that over and over and over and over again in this country. And once they realize that we will continue, we're at the resilience that is in us after living through that turmoil, that we will rebuild it every time, and they will burn it down, and we do it again. We just kept doing it. They said, you know what? We have to get a way to integrate them so they'll stop doing this, and we can see what they're up to so that we can control them. And so, since we've already convinced them that everything that we have is better yet, now we'll dangle integration in front of them. And so and now, unfortunately, you had the people making backroom decisions for everybody.
Where it happened, which is still happening.
I'd argue that it just happened again. The Black church, it literally just happened again. You had 3 rogue ass lunatic leaders of rogue ass denominations.
Why would you
going to obstruct? It's because it's the same thing. If you don't, I one thing that I have said for the longest time, when you realize if this is in you and you're one of those people that I've never been to a protest, I ain't going out there with so your grandmama didn't either. Your bitch ass grandmama and your bitch ass granddaddy was at home too. It's delusional to think that people actually were getting out there and voting and marching. The people that are doing it now are descendants of people that did it before.
I am a descendant of people who did it before.
And it might not be your mama, your daddy, it might not be but there's somebody in there that, like, if you the radical gene does not just pop up.
Very rarely. And these are not all ancestors. I'm talking about, I have living relatives who participated in the civil rights movements, chased out of southern states, picked cotton, they're living, I can call them, on their cell phone. Today, tomorrow. We're not far removed from what has happened on this stolen land. Not nearly as far removed as the stolen land would have you believe, or the people who are running this country would have you believe. We're just not, we don't live in a post-racial society. We got a Black president, and you see where we are now. And I'm not saying a black president as in he was the president for black people. He was literally a black man who was president of this country. And we have been dealing with the backlash of that decision since it happened. The white lash, excuse me.
White lash.
And we will continue to. And with that being said, you said all of that because these two men were lynched. And I
Exactly.
just really want to
And I,
call that for what it was. They were lynched. A middle-aged Hispanic man and a middle-aged black man did not hang themselves in Albany, New York, and Aurora, Colorado. That didn't happen.
you're not gonna sit up and tell me that because it didn't
There's
happen.
nothing you can say to me to
I'm
convince me
sorry,
that either of these
it
men
didn't
hung
happen.
themselves in
No,
the middle of a park in these two cities in 2025. It just didn't happen. And
this is
so
deliberate. This is deliberate mental anguish that's literally meant to continue to drum up. Like if you know, like I mean, it is just vile. It's vile the way that they speak, the condescending rhetoric, the condescending orders, the condescending statements, the condescending laws. Like these people are vile. They want to kill you, and we're not being alarmist. This is what it is. It's very dangerous to say this. And again, we're on an independent black media network saying it because we have to be here. We have to be here. There's no other safe place to do this.
no,
And I'd argue that this one was safe. It's really it's probably not.
no. It is
So
what it is, though. It is what it is because y'all have to know. We have to know. And I think we are just so tired of the propaganda, the misinformation, the disinformation, and everything else. I don't want to hear anyone else say, "Oh, I didn't know." Stop making the choice to not know. You need to know. One, because you need to know when it's time to run. And as your resident black journalist and as your resident policy person, it's time. Okay. There people are not moving out of the country. You're not seeing a bunch of expat this and expat that. You're not seeing that for no reason. Okay. People are reading the writing on the wall. People are reading, they know history. They know the
They
history
know.
not just of
They
this
know. They
country, this
know.
very
They
young
know.
country that's not even 250 years old. They know the history of this
They know.
stolen land, and they
They
are
know.
reading the
And
tea
they
leaves, if you want to say it
and
that way.
you're
Like,
convinced that they would tell you. And that is the I'm trying to tell you that is the disillusionment. That's why you're bamboozled. That's why you're like, well, wait a minute. This they I well somebody wouldn't let me know? No.
no, these dystopian shows and movies and things that are coming out are not so dystopian, okay? Contagion came out in 2011, talking about a universal pandemic that happened because of a bat bite. A bat and pig and things happen over in China. That movie came out in 2011, okay? We had a universal pandemic that happened in 2020. It started in 2019, and there were plans. There was a pandemic task force that was put together by the Obama administration, destroyed by the Trump administration, but they put it together because the doctors, the scientists, the smart people who are responsible for knowing these things said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's
For
a matter
sure.
of
For sure.
when the next bubonic plague happens, when the next pandemic happens. It's going to happen. They predicted it. So there was a task force for it that the Trump administration completely took away. We are looking at the next extinction event of Earth. It may not happen in our lifetime, maybe if we, stop fracking and digging into the Earth's crust because we want oil and to pump high pressure water into the Earth. But we are actively, as humans, creating the one, two, three, four, five, six extinction event that will happen on this Earth. And you think that this administration and this Congress and this Supreme Court, who are allowing regulations from the Clean Air Act Clean Water Act and the different regulations that the EPA has in place and that our government has in place, that things like removing us from the Paris Accords, which is one of the universal agreements between a few countries to say we are going to do everything in our power to keep climate change at bay. We're going to lessen emissions from our country. The United States is one of the worst proponents of climate change and global warming in the world. And yet we spend pennies on the dollar to try and mitigate the harms that we are causing to Mother Earth. They are going to kill us by hook or crook, okay? Either they're going to let you have your Big Mac, but not your health care, or they're going to let you have your tea and not your diabetes medication. They're going to let you breathe the air, but not regulate the air that you're breathing. So you're going to breathe in the fumes. They're going to let you have water, oh, but we're not going to guarantee that it's clean or has fluoride in it. We're going to let you have nuclear power,
Or
but we're
that
not
it's
going to
coming
tell
from
you
a
the
clean
dangers,
source.
or that it's coming from a clean source. We're going to let you have nuclear power, and we're going to build this in your community. We may even say we're going to bring jobs with these new nuclear plants, but we're not going to tell you about the dangers of it, or we're not going to teach you the history of 3 Mile Island that happened in Middletown, Pennsylvania, one of the worst nuclear nuclear meltdown that happened on U.S. soil. We're not going to tell you about that. We're not. I was about to get into other things, and
Well, they're going to tell you
black
that it
would be
was
at my
free
door
information.
tomorrow.
You could have you should have looked it up. And again, I just think that the level of disingenuity is the word. It's late, and I the 4-letter words that I give right now, because I'm just thinking about the country. We have a lot of things to say to you tonight, and unfortunately, there's no way that we can get to them all.
No, we'll be back.
There's no way. Because there's nothing that we could there was nothing that we could not say tonight. Like there was nothing that we could not. This absolutely had to be said, absolutely had to be covered. You absolutely need to be paying attention. We absolutely have to keep coming back. We'll be here again. I mean, and again, I'm not being held hostage. But it's not like I want to do this.
Right.
There's a lot of things that I want to be doing right now. There's a lot of things that I wanted to do. And then there was a plague.
I would like to apply for the Great British Baking Show. I don't want to do this. I just don't. But we're doing it because there's not enough people doing it. That's why we're doing it.
There's no one doing it.
Not from this lens.
Yeah. There are people doing it, but I think in the grand scheme of things that the total number is low.
Very low.
It's not a significant number of people that want to get on this level and talk to you about what is happening. And again, this was not doom and gloom. This is happening, and this is what you must do. This is not, here you can call your congressman. We've had shows for years that we gave out Congress's number. That's over. Like we're done with that. Done. Call them for what?
What's that going to do?
We haven't even gotten to the point that I talked about people not knowing the difference between a king and a president. But part of the reason that you need to know this difference is that with the president, it means he does not have all of the power. He's got a subset of power that's checked by the Congress and also checked by the judicial branch.
Or supposed to
be. That's all tied. It has its own issues, but the idea here is that as flagrantly racist, bigoted, misogynistic, and heinous that this country can be, that at least within all of that, there's guidelines and boundaries. And I'd be hard pressed to say like this country, none of those words apply to this country. or to the, I mean, these people think that their document is sacred, and they think that these forefathers are sacred as well. But those motherfuckers had slaves. I really don't give a damn about their powdered wigs. What they like, these people were also extremely heinous. George Washington, be damn, I didn't know the man. You know why? I couldn't have known the man. I would have been on his field. And that there's no way that's not true. So I was never indoctrinated. I never was able to. My country, 'tis of thee.
I can't tell you the last time I said the Pledge of Allegiance. Elementary school. I think I was in elementary school the last time I said it.
I would be lying to you if I said I said it after third grade.
I don't think I did. I remember being in class saying, "I pledge allegiance to the." Wait a minute, I don't know what that word means. Of the United States of America and to the republic for
I don't.
which is sent one nation under God. No.
I remember one a year a teacher said, "Oh, is it a religious exemption?" Absolutely not. It's just something I'm not doing.
I'm not saying that.
So I can't.
I'm just not.
We can do this. You can go talk to my teacher from last year. He or she will tell you that I didn't do it either. Like, this is I don't pledge allegiance to anything, actually, but specifically not a country that's document still says that I'm 3/5 human. I don't like an amendment is sharing that document, and I know that, like, okay, this is settled. It's not settled. If it's settled, then we wouldn't be having these battles that we're having right now. We wouldn't be having these battles. So no. It's a hard no. It's full stop. Absolutely not. No. I don't think that we can continue to just give respect where respect is not reciprocated. So you participate in what you need to participate in, but you start working for you and yours. You start thinking about how you protect you and yours, because I'm trying to tell you that the protections that you think, that false sense of safety, it's a facade. There's no safety net. There's no safe refuge. The places that at one point in this country would stand for things, would stand up and have some semblance of integrity, are backing down and bowing down, kissing the ring, and saying that we are peaceful people and that we should bring on, like, to me, that is literally it is anti-Christ to be that way. It is literally anti-Christ. Now, we're all looking for one specific person to come be the anti-Christ, and maybe you're bamboozled by that too. Because, and you know what, Tiff? I actually think that a lot of people are bamboozled by that. And I don't want a theological argument there, because and you know why I don't? Because it's just like this country to have you looking for the boogeyman.
And think that it's not in your Congress or White House.
Or to think that it's just, or to think that there's just one of them.
Because it's not.
If they send you on the quest to believe again, because that's what they do. They told you. I will never forget the week that I left Georgia. I had this conversation with this old nice white lady named Ann, and she said, I want you to live your life when you leave and you head to New York, because one thing that I just really hate that blacks don't know is that we sold y'all a bill of goods and told you that you need to work hard because there's a paradise and in the afterlife. And we've got you slaving down here while we're living in paradise right here on earth. I didn't have words for Anne. I was stunned because I quite literally had never considered that was actually a plan. She said we, meaning that she was complicit in that plan. And man, Anne seemed like a sweet lady. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. I don't know. I'm telling you what she said. And David had me out here looking for a proverbial boogeyman, blaming things on a boogeyman when Satan is literally the governor of your state, okay? The principal of your school, the CEO of your company, the chairman of the homeowners association, the manager of your apartment complex, the asshole, you like, and you out here like, the devil is busy. Exactly. And while the devil is right there among you, these assholes are right here among you. You're like, the devil. Oh, I bind him in the neck. Baby, what you need to do is tell Ross that he has you fucked up. That's what you need to do. You're looking at the devil. You again, and you're like, well, but I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't believe. I'm saying that you should just open your eyes. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to be present. I'm asking you to not believe that this is a fantasy. I'm not telling you to stop believing in fantasies. I'm not telling you to stop believing in whatever you believe. I really I don't care. I just want you to be present. I want you to be clear. I want you to be aware of where you are and what is happening. That's the only thing that I care about. I'm honestly, I really don't care about anything else. I want people to be aware. I want people to not be disillusioned by some narrative that's been proven wrong. Like, we are the only people that will look at a fact and say, God is gonna tell me when okay. Well, shit. Then what the fuck are you? What do you want signs for? What do you want? Like what?
I want people to stop asking God for salvation and safety, and God sends a boat, a canoe, and a helicopter, and you ignore every single effort to save you. But I know we are a long way away from that, and that is what breaks my heart day after day, because talking to people in community, talking to people in church, talking to people, we are a very long way away from disrupting the propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation machine that has been in effect for generations. This country isn't even that old.
It hurts me to the core. It really does. It really does upset me.
It really pains me.
We sit here and we justify mistreatment.
Y'all hugged that woman after she killed Botham Jean and then gave her a Bible.
Good night. Good night. Like, good night. Because see, you do you want me to say something nice? Do you want me to say something nice? Do you want me to say something nice?
No.
Because that is taught. That is taught. That you might as that judge might as well have went home to her plantation and took a shit in a hole, because that's the type of judge. Like, what in the hell is that?
Y'all hugged that woman
and gave her a Bible.
Hugged that woman and gave her a Bible. She killed a man in his apartment, and y'all hugged that woman and gave her a Bible.
I simply I simply want y'all to open your eyes and pay attention. I know this again. It's so easy to slip back into movies and fantasies, and
Can't hear you. There you go. You hit the power button. Oh,
I hate it again.
there you
There
go.
we go. If you need Whoopi Goldberg to tell you to wake up and pay attention, if that's what you need, then go watch that. Then go watch the damn movie. But whatever it's gonna take, I don't want you to watch the movie because I don't want you to be stuck in I don't want you to be stuck in a fantasy. Like the fantasy is gonna get you killed. It's gonna get you run over. It's gonna leave you for dead.
In the middle of the street or on a tree.
And then when they leave you for dead,
or rolled in a carpet.
Depending on where you die, there's pastors out here that are listed to have a list of demands that you must comply with if you want to have your funeral at their church, right? They have a whole list of things.
I don't have anything
because that's what matters. And to me, that is beyond a distraction. It's such a distraction. It's such a distraction.
I don't have anything else.
It's such a distraction.
I don't have anything else for tonight. A new episode of Tiffanie Talks will be present this week. So make sure you go follow that on whatever your favorite podcast platform is.
No, go follow it at NoirTube. And then after you follow it on NoirTube, then you can go follow it somewhere else.
There you go.
Okay, and if she tells you other directions the next time she's there and I'm not there to say that, just remember that if I'm here again, I'm gonna correct her. And then because we'll do that in unison. Because I don't want you to follow me anywhere, but I'm gonna tell you to go follow me on NoirTube as well.
True. You could follow my social media, but I'm not really on that right now, and I'm actually enjoying the piece. So you can follow the accounts if you want and read some of my old things. I might come back to it, I might not. But Tiffanie Talks.
You can send me an email, okay?
Okay, all right. You might as well have told the people to fax you. This has been lovely.
You can also do that. The number is 646
Alex
440.
Please. This has been lovely. Thank you for being with us tonight on Black Headlines. If you want to read more about any of the stories that we discussed tonight, make sure you visit BLKALERTS.com, BLKALERTS.com. You can also share your comments, share your thoughts. You can do that on any of the links where you are watching this. You can also comment on the articles on Black Alerts. I'm Tiffanie Lanelle. We'll be back because we've got so much more to discuss.
I'm going to say this. I really did not come to get pissed off tonight, right? So
I knew it.
I really didn't come to get pissed off tonight, but I do feel like we are just in some very uncertain times, and I say,
trying to kill us.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Left Brain, because I was gonna say, while we are in uncertain times, we are very certain about what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have anybody else. I don't have anybody to quote, because the people that should be the people that have traditionally been there to champion and lead communities and people are bamboozled and swayed by not just supremacy, but the illusion of proximity to whiteness. And I said this a couple months ago, and I do think that, you know, I've had a true disdain for social media, and what it's done to the brains of young people. I think there's value in it, but I do think that it's been detrimental to our society. And I don't know which I rank higher, reality TV or social media. I think
neck
that
and neck.
they work together to
Mhm.
literally destroy everything, right? Because you start to live in that reality. I know
Right.
people that think they live in a real reality show. Baby, this is not a show. This is real life. This shit is really happening. And
Right.
so on my close, I just say it's important that you pay attention. It's important that you get involved. It's important that you start thinking about what's next. And just we got to work out. We have to do better. We don't have a choice. And that's all. I'm Alex Haynes, Alex Unmuted in most places. You can send me an email at alexunmuted.com. That's how I really prefer for you to get in touch with me. And I'm being honest. Keep it simple. Be concise. Get to the point. There was once an elder. She was a terrible person to have this on her door. It said, "Be bold, be brief, and be gone." And she worked at a church. So on that note, we're going to wrap this up. It's been lovely. Thanks for, again, tuning in to Black Headlines. This show will be available in its entirety, as well as our shows come back in their various forms, different platforms. When you see this show next time, it will begin and end, and throughout the show with the donate button. Oblige us, okay?
Please.
We just told you for 2.5 hours that they want to kill us. At least send us some pennies.
We're trying to build up what we need for our commissaries when they come get us.
Oh, commissary. Oh, girl.
We'll be gone before that happens.
I'll be I'll be damned. I'll be damned. You want to see me cause my own murder?
I'm Tiffanie Lanelle.
I'm going down.
On Instagram and Threads.
Take me out. You
can follow me. We'll be back on all of our shows and platforms.
I will be damned.
Have a great day. Okay. Be blessed. Be safe. Peace.
Be blessed.
You're watching More Plus.